Hi guys, it's Jen here and welcome to Jen's World About Art and welcome back to Pembuary. So for today's Pembuary piece, I'm doing a picture of a lemur. They are absolutely adorable animals and they have the most magnificent eyes. And yeah, I couldn't resist this photograph when I saw it on Unsplash, so I thought I would give it a go. So I'm drawing the outline in pencil first, just because I've never drawn a lemur before, and I knew I'd sort of probably make a couple of mistakes with his proportions and whatnot. So I drew him in pencil first, just so I could correct any errors. And now I'm going in with my Pitt pens. So these are ink pens, and they are absolutely wonderful. I love them for doing my wildlife art. So I'm going in on the lemur and I'm starting with a cool grey just to get the base coat in. I'll build up over the top of this with all different greys and browns. So yeah, this is just a lighter grey. And I'll just build up through the different tones. So I just literally fill in all around his back, and I sped up the footage here just to get through the base layer for you. So you didn't have to watch every single stroke slowly. So yeah, I've sped this up. So just to get through the coat, and yeah, we'll just finish him off in the grey. I'd also like to thank everyone who's participated in Pembuary. I'll pop everyone's names and links below. Yeah, love you to check everyone's work out. Everyone's doing awesome with their art. Righto, so now I start to add in different tones of grey. So I go to a slightly darker grey and I add the trim around his eyes and his nose. And I start to work in the hair in his ears and around his eyes. He's got very dark around his eyes. So I start to build up layers of the greys just to darken everything up and start to build up the tonal values as I go. And his muzzle is quite dark, so I'll put a layer of this grey on, and I'll still go over this again. It dries a little bit lighter, just a fraction lighter. So I do go over it quite a few times with a few different tones of grey. And they're quite dark down their legs, so I add this grey down there as well. And it brings some uniformity to the piece too by using the same colours throughout their whole body, not sort of jumping around to a different colour palette here and a different colour palette there. So I tend to use the same colours over and over and just layer. So that's pretty much, I've got to the darkest colour that I'll be using. And then I work back from there to my mid-tones. So I sort of pick a middle coloured grey. And then as you can see what I did on the top of his head, I went to a middle colour grey and then faded it back to a lighter grey towards the back of his head that's the lightest area. So now I'm filling in his gorgeous little eyes. So I go in with a base colour of yellow. Then I add a little bit of orange around. And then I go in with a richer orange. Just to add the real texture to the eyes. And then I pop some little highlight dots on. And they've got very dark eyelids, so I pop his little eyelids right in there. And I darken up his nostrils and his mouth. So now I go into his fur with a very light grey. And I just run that, fill in all around his fur. Anywhere that's white, I do in this light grey. So now I smooth out, because I've got lots of line marks. So as you build up in layers, they disappear. So I go over everywhere with another grey, just the next tone up in grey. And I sort of blend it through into his shadow areas. And then I've got this very pale blue, and I use that for the shadows around his ears and his chin and his eyes. And then down onto his chest. I think it's pale indigo, that one. It's a beautiful colour. So then I add a little bit of white just to soften the edges. I don't want harsh lines. And I grabbed the wrong colour there, so I went in with the brown, but I just went over that again with the skin tone, because these guys, when you put this pink over grey, it actually turns it a nice little brown colour, light brown colour. So I've done that on his back. And now I start adding a little bit of fur texture around. So now I'm bringing the mid-tones into his back fur as well, because I had quite a jump from light to dark on the different parts of his fur there. So I'm just bringing it all together now by bringing the mid-tones in and blending. now I start to put a bit more definition around his face. I'm using an indigo, and I take that around his eyes as well. He's got very dark bands around his eyes, and I pop some fur texture in his ear, and I just rough up some of the edges so it looks furry. And then around the edges of his coat on his shoulders also I add fur texture. And I take that down his legs, and he's starting to come alive. We're getting there. So then I add a highlight onto his nose, and that's not a bright white. I didn't want it to be really bright white, so I've just sort of left it a dull white. And then I start to add whiskers. And they've got little whiskers all over their faces, so that was fun to pop those in around his nose and around his eyes. Very cute animals, these lemurs. Pop a little bit of fur texture around his ears and the top of his head and his back. And we're just about done. So I'd love it if you'd click like and subscribe, and also on the bell icon. That way you'll get notified when I release a new video. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you all for the next video. Okie doke. Bye.